Welcome back to another First Chapter Friday where I will read the first chapter of a book in hopes that you will read the rest on your own. This week's book is a Blue Stem book for this year, one of 20 books that you should be reading. It's called Hope in the Holler by Lisa Lewis Tyree. It's a realistic fiction book about a girl named Wavy whose mom died and gave Wavy a list of instructions to help her find her way in life. Unfortunately, Wavy goes to live with her scheming relatives in Conley Hollow. She has to figure out how to make the best of her situation, and she meets a new friend named Gilbert who helps her find her way in the world. Please listen to the first chapter of Hope in the Holler and check it out today from Destiny Discover. Chapter 1. An actual clown conducted my mom's funeral. He didn't wear clown clothes or grease paint, but I'd read his biography on the Andro Funeral Home website, which had included his hobby among with the facts that he'd been married for 13 years and had a son named Angus. Mama had been especially tickled. They ought to change their tagline to, "We put the fun in funerals." "Sounds like your funeral will be a real three-ring circus," I said. "Write it down, Wavy," she answered. "I want my pallbearers to ride in on unicycles." When she laughed, I giggled along with her, even though I didn't find planning the funeral one bit funny. But when your mama is practically face to face with the Grim Reaper, you do what you can. It had been Mama's idea, fueled by our own long hours waiting in hospital rooms and the need to find something else to think about, to take words and see how many new ones we can make out of the letters. Doesn't cost but 2 cents of graphite, Wavy. Try it. There are all sorts of words to make out of funeral. Fun, of course, and lunar, leaf, and earful. There are 96 if you counted words that people use for Scrabble, but aren't really words, like nuff and My favorite was unreal. That's a perfect word to describe the day you lay your mama to rest. In the end, there hadn't been any unicycles or even pallbearers for that matter. Mama had left instructions to be cremated with only a small graveside service for the burial of her ashes, conducted by the part-time clown. I slipped my hand into the pocket of my dress and felt the corner of the Andrew Hospital stationery with the list Mama had made for me. I'd memorize it, but I'd like being able to look at her handwriting. It was 7 final instructions. Number 1, use Andros. A man that moonlights as a clown and names his son after a steak sounds like someone I'd like to know. 2, I left a cutting from our peony bush in a pot by the front door. Peonies are fickle, so don't plant it until you're sure you're staying put somewhere. It was from my mama's plant, and she grew the prettiest peonies in Kentucky. You can look at it and know I'm with you in spirit. 3, the Champlain said, "Since I'm a believer, you and I would meet in heaven if you act right." I told him if it depends on how we acted, it'll be a right lonely place. Just 'cause someone's in charge don't mean they're smart. Think for yourself. Also, be good. It doesn't hurt to cover all your bases. 4, no dropping out of school. I'm banking on you being the first Conley to ever go to college. UNIVERSITY even has some fine words in it like nurse and vet. 5, cry when you need to, but don't dwell. It won't bring me back, and you've got to get on with living. 6, be brave, Wavy Bee. You've got as much right to a good life as anyone, so find it. And never ever forget that I love being your mama more than anything in this big wide world. She signed it XOXO Mama. I'd already heard most everything on the list, except the part about my grandmother's peonies. Mama hardly ever talked about her family, and she hadn't gone back to her hometown since my grandmother died. I parted ways with the rest of them right after you were born, and as far as I'm concerned, it was a good trade. It's just you and me, Wavy, against the world. Sounds like a fair fight to me. My eyes stung and the cemetery blurred. Now it was just me. Wavy against the world didn't have the same ring to it. I blinked twice, willing the tears back into my eyeballs. If I started crying now, I was afraid I'd never stop, and making a scene at Mama's graveside service would really have the neighbors at Castlefields Mobile Home Park talking. I focused on the weather instead. The man on TV had said to expect spring showers, but so far the rain had held off. The wind was starting to pick up, though, and had blown a fistful of dirt from the mound by Mama's urn across the scuffed dress shoes of my best friend Hannah and the black slip-ons of her granny, Mrs. Watkins. There was only a small cluster of folks attending, mostly neighbors from our mobile home park, but I spotted a few other faces in the back. Mrs. Leslie's, Mrs. Leslie, Mama's old boss from Walmart, a nurse from the oncology floor, my math teacher, Mr. Stevens, and a few classmates. Everyone wore black, and we stood there hunched against the cold breeze like crows on a wire trying to decide where to fly next. A beat-up sedan drove through the gates and parked down the hill, its brakes squeaking. Two people sat inside watching us, but they didn't get out. It wasn't a friendly looking car. Mama said you can't judge a book by its cover, but I think sometimes you can. I mean, one look at Harry Potter and I knew it was going to be about magic. That Buick Buck-Ick car was dented and banged up like it was mad at the world and ready to run down whatever got in its way. My caseworker, Mrs. Chipman, patted my shoulder as the funeral director placed the biodegradable urn into a small hole in front of a plaque that read simply, Ronalda May Conley, beloved mother. A few people came up and hugged me, muttering things like, she was a fine woman and she'd be missed, until Mrs. Chipman nodded that I can go and sit in her car. I can feel the stares of the people as they walk by, and I could imagine their conversations as they got into their cars. Poor kid, orphaned at 11, how pitiful. I leaned my head forward until it hit my knees and closed my eyes. Someone tapped softly on the glass. Wavy, are you all right? I sat back up and rolled down the window. Hey, Hannah. I put my hand out the window and laced my fingers through hers. She wiped her eyes with her free hand. I am so sorry. I nodded. Hannah dug an envelope out of her pocket and handed it through the window. The trailer park took up a collection. It's not much, but hopefully it'll help. The envelope was heavy, and I can feel an abundance of change. It was all I can do to choke out an answer. Tell everyone I said thanks. Hannah gave me a final sad smile and turned to leave. The driver's side door opened, and Mrs. Chipman settled into the front seat. Then she reached back and rubbed my shoulder. You ready? I looked once more towards the gravesite. Yes. Everyone was gone except for the old car I noticed earlier. As we moved to pass it, the driver held up a hand for us to stop. We watched as a woman with long, frizzy blonde hair got out and walked towards us. A grumpy-looking teenager stayed in the car, slumped against the window. Why is that woman dressed like a cat? I asked. That's called a leopard print, Mrs. Chipman said. Leopard Lady was top-heavy with broad shoulders and skinny legs. She wore leopard-printed leggings under a leopard-print sweater. When she got to the car, she motioned for Mrs. Chipman to open the window, then bent down and stared into the back seat. Wavy? Wavy Conley, is that you? I leaned back against the seat. Yes. Why, I'm your Aunt Samantha Rose. I've come to take care of you. See? Unreal. Hope you liked the first chapter and will continue to read the rest on your own.